I was 9 months pregnant. It was early morning. I sat in the passenger seat of our car. My contractions were 6 minutes apart. I told my husband it was time to go to the hospital. I was calm, but my body was not. He stood outside the car with his fishing gear. His rod was over his shoulder. His tackle box was in his hand. He said the hospital was close. He said I could drive myself. He said his father was already waiting for him. Another contraction hit. I grabbed the dashboard. I asked him to stay. I told him the pain was getting worse. He did not look at my face. He looked at the driveway. He said women give birth every day. He said I was strong. His father's truck was already running. I saw the brake lights glow red. My husband kissed my forehead. It was fast. He smelled like coffee and bait. He told me he would come later. I watched him walk away from the car. I watched him get into his father's truck. I watched the door close. The engine got louder. Then they drove off. I was still sitting there, alone. My hands were shaking. Another contraction came. Stronger than before. I tried to breathe through it. I looked at the empty driveway. The house was quiet. The street was quiet. No one came back. That was the moment I understood something was wrong. Not just with the morning, not just with the birth. Something was wrong with my marriage. I reached for my phone to call him again. That was when the pain hit harder than before. I stayed in the car after they left. I did not turn the key. My body felt heavy. Another contraction started. It wrapped tight around my stomach. I bent forward and breathed slowly. I checked the time on the dashboard. It was 6:47 a.m. The hospital was 12 minutes away. That was what he said before leaving. 12 minutes felt very far. I picked up my phone and called him. It rang, then it stopped. No answer. I sent a message. I told him the pain was stronger. I told him I needed help. The message showed delivered. Another contraction came. It was closer than the last one. I pressed my forehead against the window. I realized I could not wait anymore. I turned the key and started the engine. My hands shook on the steering wheel. I pulled out of the driveway slowly. I did not want to crash. I did not want to hurt the baby. The road was empty. The sky was still dark. Each bump in the road sent pain through my body. I counted breaths. I counted seconds. I focused on the road. My phone buzzed. I looked at it at a red light. He had seen my message. He did not reply. That silence felt louder than any sound. It told me everything. Another contraction hit. I cried out once, then stopped. I did not want to panic. I had to stay in control. I thought about calling my mother. I thought about calling an ambulance. I decided to keep driving. I told myself to reach the hospital first. I told myself to survive the next minute. As I turned onto the main road, my body tightened again. I realized I was truly alone now. I reached the hospital parking lot. I parked badly across 2 spaces. I did not care. Another contraction hit as soon as I stopped the car. I leaned forward and waited for it to pass. I grabbed my bag and stepped out. My legs felt weak. I walked slowly toward the entrance. No one was with me. Other cars dropped off couples. I walked alone. Inside, the lights were bright. The smell of disinfectant filled the air. I went to the front desk and told them I was in labor. My voice shook, but I stayed upright. They asked for my emergency contact. I hesitated, then said none. They asked where my husband was. I said he was not here. I did not explain. A nurse helped me into a wheelchair. Another contraction came. I gripped the armrest. I focused on breathing. They took me to the intake room. Papers were placed in front of me. I filled them out between contractions. My hands moved fast. My body did not cooperate. The nurse attached monitors to my stomach. The machine started beeping softly. She told me to lie back. I stared at the ceiling. I checked my phone again. I sent another message. I told him I was at the hospital. The message showed read. Still no reply. The nurse asked if someone was coming. I said I did not know. She nodded and adjusted the monitor. Another contraction hit harder than before. I closed my eyes. I counted breaths. I told myself to stay quiet. I heard footsteps outside the room. Voices moved past the door. No one came in for me. I realized something then. I was doing this alone. No hand to hold, no one to speak for me. The monitor beeped again, louder this time. The nurse looked at the screen. Her face changed. The nurse leaned closer to the monitor. She adjusted the strap on my stomach. The beeping slowed, then returned. She told me to stay still. Another nurse entered the room. They spoke quietly to each other. I asked if something was wrong. No one answered right away. I reached for my phone. My hands were shaking. I sent my husband another message. I told him the nurses were concerned. I told him to come now. The message showed red within seconds. Nothing followed. The pain came again, strong, sharp. I grabbed the side of the bed. I focused on breathing. The nurses watched the screen. One of them left the room quickly. I heard her footsteps move fast down the hall. The other nurse stayed with me. She told me to keep breathing and not to push. I stared at my phone. I sent another message, short this time. I told him I was scared. Read. No reply. That silence felt deliberate. He was choosing not to answer. I understood that clearly. A doctor entered the room. He looked at the monitor. He asked how long I had been having contractions. I told him the truth. I told him I was alone. He nodded once. He spoke to the nurse in a low voice. I heard the words heart rate. My chest tightened. I asked about my baby. The doctor told me they were watching closely. I typed again with shaking fingers. I told my husband the baby might be in trouble. I told him to come now. The message showed read. Seconds passed, then minutes. Finally, a reply appeared. I opened it. It was short. It did not say he was coming. My stomach dropped as I read the words. The message said he was busy. He said the fishing was good. He said the doctors would handle it. He told me to keep him updated. I stared at the screen. My hands went cold. I read the message again to be sure. The words did not change. Another contraction hit. I cried out before I could stop myself. The nurse rushed back to my side. She checked the monitor again. The beeping sped up, then it dipped low. The nurse pressed a button on the wall. More footsteps came fast down the hall. The doctor returned. He spoke clearly and fast. He said the baby's heart rate was dropping during contractions. He said they might need to act quickly. I asked what that meant. He said possible emergency surgery if it got worse. I grabbed my phone again. I typed fast. I told my husband the baby was in distress. I told him surgery might be needed. I begged him to come. The message showed read. No reply came back. The room filled with people. Nurses adjusted wires and belts. Someone moved equipment closer to the bed. The lights felt brighter. My breathing became harder to control. Fear pushed against my chest. I forced myself to stay still because they told me to. I looked at the door. I hoped he would walk in. He did not. The doctor watched the monitor closely. He told me to focus on breathing. He said they were trying to stabilize the baby. I nodded. I followed instructions. I did everything they asked. Inside, something shifted. I felt fear, anger, and clarity at the same time. I understood I could not rely on him. The monitor beeped again. The sound was sharp and urgent. The doctor looked up at me. He said they needed to decide fast. I held my breath, waiting for his next words. The doctor watched the monitor in silence. The room felt tight. Every sound mattered. I waited for him to speak. He said the baby's heart rate was rising again. Not stable, but better. He said they would keep watching. Surgery was not needed yet. I exhaled slowly. My hands were numb. The nurses stayed close. No one left the room. Another contraction came. I followed the breathing they taught me. My body worked on its own. I stayed focused. Minutes passed. The monitor continued to beep. Each sound made my chest tighten. I watched the screen even though I did not understand the numbers. I checked my phone again. No new messages. I did not text him this time. Something inside me hardened. I realized I was done waiting. Done hoping he would show up. The nurse adjusted my pillow. She told me I was doing well. Her voice was steady. It helped. The doctor returned after checking another room. He said labor was progressing. He said I was strong enough to continue. I nodded. I did not speak. I did not want to waste energy. Hours passed slowly. Pain came in waves. I focused on one contraction at a time. I stayed present. My phone stayed face down on the table. One did not look at it again. The fear was still there, but it had changed. It no longer controlled me. I was in control now. The nurse told me it would still take time. She told me to rest when I could. I closed my eyes, I listened to the monitor, I listened to my breathing. I was no longer waiting for my husband. I was waiting for my baby. Then the doctor returned again. His tone was serious. He said it was time to push. They raised the bed. Nurses moved fast but stayed calm. The doctor stood between my legs. He told me to listen carefully. A contraction hit. He told me to push. I used everything I had. My body burned. My arms shook. They told me to stop, then push again. I followed every command. I did not scream. I did not look away. I stayed focused. Time lost meaning. There was only pain and effort. Sweat ran down my face. My throat felt dry. The nurse wiped my forehead. She told me I was close. Her voice was firm. I trusted her. Another push. Harder, longer. My body trembled. I felt pressure like nothing before. The doctor told me one more time. He said this was it. I pushed with everything left in me. Then I heard a cry. Sharp, loud, real. They lifted my baby up. The sound filled the room. The nurses moved fast again. They checked her quickly. The doctor said she was breathing. He said she was okay. They placed her on my chest. Her skin was warm. She was small and heavy at the same time. I looked at her face. My vision blurred. Tears fell without effort. No one stood beside me. No hand held mine. No voice said my name. It was just me and her. The nurse covered us with a blanket. She told me I did great. I nodded. I looked toward the door once. It stayed closed. My phone was still silent. I did not reach for it. I focused on my daughter's breathing. I counted each rise of her chest. She was here. I was still alone. And I knew this moment would change everything. I held my daughter while they cleaned the room. The nurses spoke softly. The doctor left. The noise faded. Time passed. I did not know how much. My body felt empty and heavy. My daughter slept against my chest. The door finally opened. My husband walked in. He was smiling. His face was red from the sun. He smelled like lake water and fish. His clothes were wrinkled. He carried a small stuffed toy in his hand. He looked at the baby and nodded. He said she was beautiful. He said I did great. Those words felt wrong, too simple, too late. He asked how long it took. He asked if everything went okay. He spoke like he had missed a meeting, not a birth. I did not answer right away. I watched him stand there. He did not apologize. He did not explain. He told me the fishing had been good. He said his father needed help packing up. He said he came as soon as he could. I looked at his hands. They were dirty. My daughter was clean and new. A nurse entered to check my vitals. She paused when she saw him. She said nothing. He asked if I was tired. He said we should rest. He sat down in the chair and checked his phone. I turned my head away. My chest felt tight again, but not from pain. I realized something important then. He thought this was over. He thought showing up late was enough. The door opened again. Someone else stepped into the room. And they did not look calm. My sister walked into the room. Her eyes went straight to me, then to the baby. She dropped her bag and came to my side. She asked if I was okay. I nodded once. She looked at my husband. Her jaw tightened. She did not greet him. She held my daughter carefully. Her hands were steady. She whispered that she was perfect. My husband stood up. He said he was glad she came. He tried to smile again. She ignored it. A nurse returned with papers, bills, forms. She explained insurance and costs. The numbers were high. I listened closely. After the nurse left, my sister asked about our savings. She said hospital bills would come fast. She asked if we were ready. I said we had money saved, or we should have. My husband spoke before I could finish. He said everything was fine. He said not to worry. Something in his tone felt wrong. Later that night, after my sister left to get food, I checked our bank app on my phone. I had not looked in weeks. The balance was low, much lower than it should be. I refreshed the screen. The number did not change. I opened the transaction history. My hands started to shake again. Large transfers stood out. Dates from months ago, amounts that made no sense. I scrolled faster. My chest tightened. The money was gone. I looked at my husband. He was asleep in the chair. His phone buzzed on his lap. A message from his father lit the screen. I did not wake him. I locked my phone and stared at the wall. My daughter slept beside me. She made small sounds in her sleep. I understood then that the birth was not the worst part. Something else had been taken. And I was about to find out how much. We went home 2 days later. My body was sore. My daughter slept often. The house felt quiet and wrong. My husband acted normal. He talked about fishing. He talked about weather. He did not talk about the birth. He did not talk about the money. I waited. A week later, I did laundry. I moved slowly. I checked pockets out of habit. In his fishing jacket, I felt folded paper. I pulled it out. It was a receipt. The store name was clear, a marine shop. The date was 3 weeks before I gave birth. The amount was large, much larger than it should be. It was a deposit for a fishing boat. My hands went cold. I read it again. I checked the date again. It matched the time he said we could not afford to fix the heater in the baby's room. I sat down on the edge of the bed. My daughter cried from the other room. One did not move right away. This explained the missing money. Not all of it, but enough to scare me. I did not confront him. I did not ask questions. I knew better now. I took a photo of the receipt with my phone. I folded it back exactly the way I found it. I placed it back in the pocket. That night I watched him sleep. His face was calm. Mine was not. I realized something important. He was not careless. He was hiding things. And if he was hiding this, there was more. Much more. I turned my face toward the wall. My daughter stirred in her crib. I decided I would stop asking for answers. I would start finding them. I waited until he left for work. The house went quiet. My daughter slept. I opened my laptop. I logged into our bank account. I told myself to stay calm. I needed facts, not panic. I downloaded the statements. 1 month became 6. 6 became 2 years. The pattern showed fast. Small transfers at first, then larger ones, always to the same company, his father's business. I wrote the numbers down, dates, amounts, totals. My hands stopped shaking once one focused. This felt familiar. I worked with numbers every day. I knew how to track money. The total shocked me. Tens of thousands gone, money meant for our future, money I helped earn. I checked our credit accounts next. New balances appeared, things I never approved, things I never signed. I checked business records online. His name appeared where it should not have been, partial ownership, legal responsibility. I leaned back in the chair. My chest felt tight, but my mind was clear. This was not a mistake. This was not temporary help. This was planned. My phone buzzed, a message from him. He asked what was for dinner. I did not answer. I saved every file. I backed them up. I emailed copies to myself. I heard my daughter cry. I closed the laptop and went to her. As I held her, I understood the danger. His debt was not just his. It could become mine. I looked down at her face. She was calm. She trusted me. That trust settled everything. I would protect her. And I would not warn him. Not yet. The next Saturday he left before sunrise, fishing again. He did not ask if I needed help. He did not check on the baby. As soon as his car disappeared, I packed my daughter into her car seat. I drove to the address on the receipt. The marine store was open. Bright boats lined the floor. A man greeted me and asked if I needed help. I said I was looking for a model my husband ordered. I gave his last name. I kept my voice steady. The man smiled. He said he remembered the order. He pulled it up on his computer. He turned the screen toward me. The boat was expensive, brand new, fully loaded. The total price made my stomach drop. The deposit on the receipt was only the beginning. I asked whose name it was under. He said my husband's full name, not the business, not his father. I asked about the loan. He said it was active. He said payments had started. I thanked him and walked out slowly. My legs felt weak, but my mind was sharp. I sat in my car and stared straight ahead. My daughter made soft sounds in the back seat. This was not hidden money for emergencies. This was not helping family. This was betrayal with paperwork. I drove home without stopping anywhere. I locked the door behind me. That night, I watched my husband talk about fishing plans like nothing was wrong. I listened without reacting. Inside, I was done guessing. I now knew what he chose. And I knew exactly what I needed to do next. I called my sister that night. I told her everything. I did not skip details. I did not soften the truth. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said one name: a lawyer. She said this woman handled hidden money and financial lies. The next week, I drove alone to the meeting. I left my daughter with my mother. My hands were steady when I walked in. The lawyer read everything: bank statements, the receipt, business records, text messages. She did not look surprised. She told me this was serious. She said the money transfers mattered. She said the boat mattered. She said the business ownership mattered even more. She explained the risk. If the business failed, debt could follow him. That debt could touch me if I stayed. She said timing was important. She said preparation mattered more than emotion. I asked if I had a case. She said yes, strong. She told me not to confront my husband. She told me not to warn him. She told me to gather quietly. She listed what I needed: copies of documents, a separate bank account, a record of his behavior. I nodded. I took notes. I felt calm in a way I had not felt in months. Before I left, she looked at me and said something clear. She said this would get ugly once it started. I thanked her and walked out. In my car, I sat for a moment before starting the engine. I thought about my daughter. I thought about the house. I understood this was no longer about marriage. It was about survival. And I was ready to move first. I followed the lawyer's advice. I stayed quiet. I watched everything. At night, when my husband slept, I checked the phone records. His plan was in my name. I had full access. The call history was long, very long. He spoke to his father every day, sometimes for hours, morning, afternoon, night. I checked the messages next. That was worse. His father talked about me like I was not a person. He called me a problem. He called me emotional. He called me weak. In one message, his father told him not to miss fishing for the birth. He said I was trying to control him. He said women exaggerate pain. In another message, sent after my daughter was born, his father said he was proud of him. Proud that he did not give in. Proud that he chose family. I read those lines twice, then once more. I understood then that this was not just my husband. This was trained behavior, obedience, control. I saved everything: screenshots, dates, times. I started writing things down. Every Saturday he left. Every time he ignored the baby. Every time money moved without my consent. My mother moved in to help with the baby. She did not ask questions. She already knew enough. My husband noticed nothing. He talked about fishing trips. He talked about his father's plans. He did not ask why I was quiet. That made things easier. I was no longer guessing his priorities. I was documenting them. Late one night, I looked at my sleeping daughter. I promised her something. I would not let them teach her this was normal. And I would not let them see what I was about to do. Not until it was too late to stop me. I opened a new bank account in my name only. I did it during my lunch break. No questions were asked. My next paycheck went there, then the next one. He did not notice. He never checked balances unless his father told him to. I copied everything: tax papers, bank statements, loan records, the boat documents. I kept digital copies and paper copies. I hid the papers at my mother's house, not in my room, somewhere he would never look. I packed slowly, one drawer at a time, only essentials: clothes for me, clothes for my daughter, important items only. I kept the bags in the garage under old boxes. He never went there. I installed the baby's car seat in my car. I practiced locking it in and out. I made sure it was secure. I watched the calendar. I waited for Saturday. Saturday always meant fishing. Saturday meant hours of freedom. The lawyer told me the timing mattered. File first, leave fast, do not explain. Friday afternoon, she filed the papers. I did not feel relief. I felt focus. That night, I cooked dinner like normal. He talked about the lake. I nodded. I went to bed early. I did not sleep much. At 5 a.m., his alarm went off. He dressed quietly. He kissed my forehead and left. I waited until I heard his father's truck pull away. The house went silent. I stood up. It was time. I grabbed the bags. I picked up my daughter from her crib. She did not cry. I walked through the house without stopping. I placed my wedding ring on the pillow. I left the papers on the counter. I locked the door behind me. I did not look back. As I drove away, my phone stayed silent. For now, I drove north without speeding. My daughter slept in the back seat. The road was clear. I crossed the city line and pulled over once. I turned off my phone, then I turned it back on and blocked his number. One needed proof, not noise. An hour later, I stopped for gas. When I checked my phone, the screen filled with missed calls. His name again and again. Text messages followed. Short at first. Confused, he asked where I was, he asked what the papers meant. I did not reply. More messages came, his tone changed. He said this was extreme. He said we should talk privately. He said his father was angry. That part made me pause. I imagined him standing in the kitchen. The house empty, the papers on the counter, his control gone. The calls kept coming, one after another, voicemails stacked fast. I listened to one, his voice was shaking. He said this was a mistake. He said he could explain everything. I deleted it. My daughter stirred, I checked the mirror, she was still asleep. I drove again. By the time I reached my mother's house, the call count was high. I stopped counting. My mother opened the door without speaking. She helped me bring the bags inside. That night, I listened to one last voicemail. His voice broke halfway through. He said he could not do this alone. I ended the message before it finished. I turned off the phone. Outside, a car pulled up and slowed. I looked through the window. It was his father's truck. And he had found us. The truck stopped in front of the house. The engine stayed on. My chest tightened. My mother told me to stay upstairs with the baby. I listened. I stood by the window and watched him step out. His face was tight. His shoulders were stiff. He walked fast. He knocked hard, once, then again, louder. My mother opened the door. She did not invite him in. I could not hear everything, but I heard his voice rise. He demanded to see me. He demanded the baby. My mother spoke calmly. She said I was resting. She said he needed to leave. He argued. He blamed me. He blamed lawyers. He blamed everyone but himself. My daughter shifted in my arms. I held her closer. I stayed quiet. My mother told him to go. She said if he did not, she would call the police. There was a long pause. He looked up at the house. For a moment I thought he saw me. I stepped back from the window. The truck door slammed. The engine revved. He drove away fast. The street went quiet again. My legs felt weak. I sat down slowly. My daughter slept through everything. That night I did not sleep much. I expected him to come back. He did not. The next morning, the lawyer called. She said things were moving fast. She said his response would be messy. She told me to stay where I was. She told me not to communicate. I agreed. Later that day, another message came through from an unknown number. Short, angry, demanding. I blocked it. I realized then this was no longer just a divorce. It was a fight for control. And it had only just begun. The next weeks moved fast. Papers arrived by mail. Court dates followed. My lawyer handled contact. I stayed silent. My husband tried to fight back. He claimed he did nothing wrong. He blamed his father. He blamed stress. None of it helped. The business records were pulled. Debts surfaced. Taxes were unpaid. The numbers were worse than I expected. His father turned defensive, then angry, then quiet. The house payments stopped. Notices came. Late fees piled up. Foreclosure warnings followed. The fishing boat was listed as an asset. The loan became a problem. Payments were missed. The court ordered evaluations. They reviewed messages. They reviewed schedules. They reviewed how often he chose fishing over his child. The pattern was clear. My lawyer told me the judge noticed. That mattered. His father stopped calling him daily. Their conversations shortened. Support disappeared. One night, my husband left a long voicemail from a new number. His voice sounded empty. He said his father said this was his problem now. I deleted it. The business accounts were frozen. Investigations started. His father blamed him publicly. The bond they protected for years cracked under pressure. Court day came. I walked in calm. I did not look at him. The judge spoke clearly. Custody, assets, responsibility. When it ended, I walked out with my daughter and my lawyer. He stayed behind. Outside, the air felt lighter. not happy, just free of weight. I realized something important. The moment he chose fishing over the birth was not the start. It was the warning. And now everything he protected was falling apart. Next, he would try one last time. And I was ready. Months passed, the case moved forward, orders were signed, rules were set. My life became quiet, predictable, safe. Then one evening, my phone rang from an unknown number. One did not answer. A voicemail followed. It was him. His voice sounded thin, tired. He said he needed to see me. He said just once. He said it was important. I waited 2 days before agreeing. I chose a public place, a grocery store near my mother's house. Cameras, people, light. I brought my daughter. I did not want privacy. He stood near the cereal aisle when I arrived. He looked older, smaller. His clothes were cheap. His hands shook slightly. He said my name. I stopped the cart. He apologized, slowly, carefully. He blamed his father. He blamed fear. He said he finally understood. He said he would change. He said he missed us. He said he had nothing left. I listened without interrupting. I watched his face. I felt nothing. He asked if there was a chance, just a small one. I looked at my daughter. She was chewing on a toy, calm, safe. I told him no. I told him he had his chance in the driveway, in the hospital, in every choice after. He lowered his head. He nodded once. I pushed the cart past him. He did not follow. As I reached the checkout, my hand stayed steady. I knew then this was over. Not because he stopped trying, but because I stopped waiting. And that was the moment I finally won. I left the store and drove home. The road was familiar. My daughter watched the world through the window. Life settled into routine. Court orders were followed. Child support arrived on time. Visits were scheduled. Some were missed. The house we once shared was sold. The business collapsed. His father lost control of everything he protected. I did not celebrate. I moved forward. I found a small place near my mother. Clean, quiet, safe. My daughter learned to walk there. Some nights were hard. Not because I missed him, but because I remembered who I used to be. That woman in the driveway felt far away now. I learned something important through all of this. Silence can be power. Preparation can be protection. I no longer checked my phone hoping for change. I no longer waited for apologies. My daughter grew stronger each day, so did I. One morning, I passed the old road leading to the lake, the place that mattered more than I did. I did not slow down. I understood then that the story ended the moment I chose myself. Not in court, not in arguments, but in the car, alone, breathing through pain, deciding to survive. And this time, I drove forward. You have reached the end of the text.